Hi, and welcome back to part 2 of Saturday Sampler, January 2020. Now we're going to talk about the cutting and the piecing of the blocks. So first, you can see over here that I've cut all of my fabric. I'll go through it with you. Fabric 1, you're going to take and cut your strip 8 3¼ inch square pieces. That's for your half square triangles, and 16 2½ inch squares. In fabric 2, you need 4 2½ inch squares. Fabric 6, you need 4 2½ inch squares. Fabric 8, also 2½ inch squares. Fabric 9, again 2½ inch squares. Fabric 10, 8 2½ 5 by 4½ inch rectangles. Fabric 11, again 2½ by 4½ inch rectangles. And fabric 12, 3¼ inch squares for your half square triangles. Okay, so I have them all set. I've placed, again, you can see my markers so I know what fabric number they are. I keep that on mark so I know where I'm going, because as you go to piece, it will indicate which fabric number you need to use, because the instructions are in black and white. So the first thing that I would like you to do, when you look at this pattern, this quilt is a medallion quilt, meaning that we're not doing like a 4x4 squares that piece together with sashing. So if things don't fit, it's okay. You have some leeway. We're working from the middle out. Your quilt needs to fit as you piece it, meaning that your cutting needs to be accurate and your piecing needs to be accurate. And I'm going to walk you through month by month how that works. Those of you that were with me last year, you talked to me about how good your piecing got and how accurate it was. You need to have things work out to the correct sizes. This is how you do it. To start, you test your machine. I took 3 pieces of fabric that were 1½ inch strips cut. I pieced them together. And then I pressed them open how I normally piece. And then I took my ruler and I measured the center one, and that center strip should measure exactly 1 inch after it's pressed open. If it doesn't measure 1 inch, you need to figure out why. Something's off, and usually it's your piecing. What's happening with your presser foot? I'm using my 1/4 inch foot. On my Bernina, I need to move my needle over 1 tick because it takes too big of a seam allowance. So I'm taking a scant 1/4 inch. Okay, and if you've looked at the beautiful fabrics you're receiving, they're all batiks. Love, love, love working with batiks. Couple of reasons. There's no wrong side. That's great. They press beautifully. I don't have to use any fabric starch. They press open nicely, but the downside of them, there's no push and pull. Okay, so when we're using regular cotton fabrics and something doesn't quite fit, you can kind of eke it in and get it to fit. Not so much with batiks. What's there is there. So how do you combat that? You cut well and you piece well. Okay, it has to be accurate. So make sure that when you're cutting, you have good lighting, you can see well, you have accurate tools, you have a sharp blade in your rotary cutter. Okay, start off well. If you don't feel like cutting that day, then don't cut that day. And don't leave this till Friday night before Saturday sampler class. Come on now, there's just too much to do. All right, so that's how you get started to get going correctly. The other nice thing about these blocks is they're made large and they're cut down to the right size. So everything is accurate. It takes a little bit longer, but you'll be happy in the end because it really does come out well. Okay, so that's how you get started. So the first thing that we're going to make are half square triangles. We all know how to do it, but I'm going to go through it again for those of you that are new to this program. I love, love, love the Bloc Loc. Okay, we started using it last year. If you haven't used it, get on board. Get on board with it. It's terrific. But if you don't want to use it, that's all right. You can use another square up, but I'm going to show you how to use it again. Okay, so the first thing that I like to do is I like to mark the back of my square with my my magic wand. So you're going to take fabrics 1 and 12. So fabric 1 and 12. I've already made a couple for the sample, but you're going to put your magic wand down, marking from point to point, and I take a thin lead and mark it from side to side, so my pieces aren't, my line isn't too big. So I have it marked. You probably can't see it, but I did mark it. Okay, you're going to put these right sides together, but again, there's no wrong side with batik, so it doesn't really matter how you pick it up. I'm going to sew on the lines that I made. I've sewn a couple together. Now you're going to cut these apart, okay? You can use a ruler or just kind of watch it. And then you're going to press them open. So I have just my little pressing mat here just to press a couple open to show you how this works. And yeah, I'm using this new Aliso mini iron. They have them at the shop. Love it. They're really great. So anyways, when you're using the Bloc Loc, the seam that you pressed, so I'm pressing towards the dark on these half square triangles, FYI. Okay, so when it says Bloc Loc, that's the side that goes on the seam that, so the seam is pressed this way, the Bloc Loc emblem goes on the other side. So it goes right into the seam. So we are cutting these down to 2.5 inch square. Okay, so my, oh, this is a, 1, 2, is this a 2 inch Bloc Loc? No, this is a 2.5 inch. I was right. Well, I doubt myself. We worked in you're going to work in 2.5 inch all the way along. So here is my 2.5 inch finished. So this is bigger. So I put it right in the middle. My first cut is going to be along the top and along here. Okay. And then I just hold this. I turn it around. Look at that. I don't even have to move it. I have the perfect edge here. And then I can cut the other side and the other side. And I have a perfect half square triangle. Look at that. Pretty slick. Now, if you have a bigger Bloc Loc, it works just the same. You can use a bigger one. I have a big one that I use because I use these all the time for everything. So I can see my 2.5. I just put it in the middle there. I can hold it down and cut it. And again, spin it around. And then just slide it down to the 2.5 inch mark and then cut it again. So you can use a bigger size. It doesn't have to be exactly the 2.5 inch, but either way it works fantastic. Perfect half square triangles. If you don't want to use a Bloc Loc, then you can just square it up with a regular smaller ruler or another square ruler. But you need to have a square ruler so that you have that mark in the middle to mark that diagonal. Okay, so there's your half square triangles. You've got to cut them all down to 2.5 inches. Don't forget to do that. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our sew and flip rectangles. Okay, next fun tool is our folded corner clipper. Let me get this stuff out of the way. And you need to have a couple different things. You need to have a fabric 1 and 10 rectangle and a fabric 1 and 11 rectangle. So what it doesn't tell you here is that you need to make 4 of each colorway, and you're